Welcome back to the Extra Rep Podcast, guys. I'm Josh.
I'm Liam.
So today we're going to talk about eating out and getting results. So specifically, obviously we know we can't probably home cook every single meal unless you're a hermit. So we're really going to talk about sort of making the smartest menu choice you can, as well as some options that we strongly recommend when going out. We're going to give you some strategies you can use with your calories and other things as well to plan for sort of bigger meals if they become unavoidable when you have family functions, things like that. And then we'll also touch just briefly on alcohol as well, which we covered in the last podcast. And again, we're going to talk a bit more about consistency, and then at the end, potentially just a couple of little supplements, again, which we've briefly mentioned, that are going to, I guess, get you to that next level and just help if you have to have, a massive sort of spike in calories as well. So, Liam, I guess the best place to start is, why do people struggle the most when they have to eat out?
I would actually say guilt's the biggest one, because straight away they're like, I can't have this. There's anxiety around it. There's the fear of binging as well, of letting loose, especially if someone's been strict for so long, and then they're like, crap, what do I do?
Yeah, binging's a really interesting one, because obviously, like, we're not medical scientists, we're not going to go into that sort of binge eating disorder, but it does become a really prevalent thing, and especially when you're talking to someone who maybe has a history of that, or has a history of, or family history of, going out and having massive meals. You take like the Italians, for example, like they'll always have their like entree, then Nonna brings out the pasta, then it's the meat, then it's the desserts, then it's the snacks after the desserts. So they're little things that, really add up, and especially, those family pressures can add up as well.
Well, you can go into a little bit about that with your experience at the Italian place I took you to in Brisbane. You ended up ordering 2 mains.
Yeah, that was so good as well.
Because they're so nice.
Regret that. Yeah.
But that's the thing, right? Like, people realize they go out and they order something and they're like, that was really effing good. And then they're like, all right, maybe I do want dessert because, I've already broken the diet, so why not? I'm already here.
And I think that comes back down to, food restaurants want to make your food delicious. Like, they don't want to make it taste like shit. So, the chances of you having a super high fat and super high carb meal mixed together, which of course is going to increase the calorie content, that's basically what restaurants want to do, which is why we're going to go through some sort of, smarter menu choices, of course, depending on the cuisines. But talk to us about, like sort of PDFs and, pre-planning. What can you do to pre-plan before you go out for a big meal?
Well, that was the first thing I was going to say, PDFs. Like, it's just so simple. You know where you're going in advance, unless it's a bit chaotic and you've got like a friend group that picks just a random joint at the last minute. But usually if you go out, you know where you're going, or we've agreed XYZ to meet at this spot, or the family birthday dinner is going to be at this restaurant. Every place online has a PDF menu. Well, I shouldn't say every, but like 90%. And also, if you do have dietary requirements, like this day and age, it's so easy. Like, everything on the menu says if it's gluten-free or vegan or dairy-free, or if you've got any allergies or anything. And look, some places do have the kilojoules listed. We don't have the calories in Australia, it's kilojoules. So just a tip for people there, if you look at kilojoules on the menu, just divide it by 4.2, and that's the calories that you'll be consuming just for that one meal, which is also very surprising for a lot of the meals.
Yeah, I think it's surprising, and then also it's a guide. So I think that's what people forget as well. They think like, if something on a menu says 400 calories, then it's definitely 400 calories. You have no idea how the chef makes one burger compared to the next, how much oil he uses in one pan compared to the next. And we're not trying to scare you here, but we're trying to get you to understand that I like to get my clients to ideally have a bit of a buffer. I always go like, add another 200 calories on top for sauces and oils, because I reckon that's probably where a lot of people come unstuck. But again, if you're going to go out at the end of the day, you can make better choices, especially when we talk about, picking a high protein option. Like, that's not hard in this day and age to find, a high protein option in a restaurant. And I say to my clients, like, high protein and basically the least amount of ingredients possible, because it's less to track, less to worry about. And the chances are you're probably going to consume less calories, and obviously ideally aiming to skip the dessert unless you've banked calories before that. But why don't you talk a bit about banking calories? Because I think that's one where a lot of people can get a lot more flexibility around their food by doing that and still enjoying their nights out.
So banking calories essentially is you can do multiple forms of things around the day to either have a lot of calories saved for the meal. So you can have just smaller meals throughout the day. You can change your meal plan. Some people can do a fasting protocol. They're just like, I know I'm just going to go all out tonight, so I'm just going to fast all the way through. If you're going to do that, I'd recommend actually just protein shakes in between, just 100 to 120 calorie, 30 grams of protein, just for the muscle sparing effect. It will really just help you also with the appetite suppressant. And look, coffee as well. I always come back to coffee, really good appetite suppressant. A lot of people aren't even actually that hungry in the mornings and they don't realize it. They just sort of eat out of habit because Monday to Friday they need to get their breakfast in before they head off to work. And then if you're going out on the weekend and you've got a bit time free to yourself, a lot of people can have 1 or 2 coffees and they're like, I don't even need to eat till like 12 p.m. I'm not even that hungry.
Yeah, I find that as well, especially me on a weekend compared to a weekday where I'm sort of structured. That's when generally I'll be hungrier because I'm in that sort of routine. Whereas on a weekend, if I'm a bit more out of a routine, still obviously following some sort of meals, but I could probably get away with, a protein shake at 7, 8 in the morning and then a coffee and then, another coffee mid-morning and then not have to eat really till lunchtime. Exactly. So it's an easy way for me to save a few calories when dieting. I think on that as well, in terms of, picking the best options on the menu, I think for a lot of people, if you can pick something that's, I guess, like, obviously got protein and vegetables in it, but, grilled, any tomato-based sauce is going to be a lot better than like a rich, creamy sauce as well. So it's not necessarily avoiding oils and rich, creamy sauces and things, but just think if they're pairing a lot of carbs and fats together, then the chances of that meal being sky high in calories is obviously going to be a lot higher.
Well, I think we should also touch on when you are going out to eat, if it's a social gathering or whatever, you're not really forced to eat. If you go out for breakfast and everyone's ordering a big breakfast, you can just get a coffee.
Yeah.
If you want, just be like, I'm not hungry. Or you can just make up some bullshit. I was a bit sick last night. And then people sort of back off. But it's like, how many times have we gone out with a mate, Ibby, and he's just gone, yep, not eating.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, cool. Just order a coffee.
Yeah, go for it.
And he's fine. Yeah. And I've done that many times as well. Just go out for a coffee instead of spending $30 on a big brekkie.
Yeah, sure. I think back to that, eating, I guess, less calories during the day in terms of obviously structuring that. You can obviously do that over the day, like I said, fasting or just having shakes and leaving all your carbs and fats. But what you can also do is do that throughout the week.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, you're on 2,000 calories to lose weight, right? From Monday to Friday, what you could do is go, maybe I'm going to go 1,800 calories from Monday to Friday. Well, you get these calories from carbs or fats. We want to keep protein constant. But if you can do that, then that's going to give you another 1,000 calories to play with on the weekend. Of course, by playing devil's advocate, I will say that sometimes that will then lead someone to be like, I have all the calories in the world and I'll start binging. But for a lot of people, it actually just gives them a lot more control to know I can go out and have food that are, outside my recommended intake, but I can still fit them in with my weekly goal and lose the same amount of fat every week as well.
Yep. And we don't want to scare anyone here. We are just here to educate you, but one meal can ruin your progress for the whole week.
Yeah, for sure.
Like one pizza at an Italian place, and you don't know how many grams of fat, cheese, oil, everything's on there, can send you over 2,000 calories and then, just ruin your whole weekly deficit.
I think as well, it's the classic, going out for a date, going out with your girlfriend, going out with the boys. You could have a family pizza to yourself, that's 2,000 calories easily, right? Enough protein, but that's another story. You add, maybe we'll share a drink or two, a cocktail or two, there's another 500 to 1,000 calories.
Garlic bread.
Yeah, garlic bread, there's another 500 to 1,000 probably, because you don't just stop at one piece of garlic bread. And then you finish it all off, we'll share a tiramisu. Well, there's another 500 calories, so there's 4,000 calories, your deficit is fucking gone.
Gone.
So it's really easy to do, so this is why it's so important to understand this stuff, and really, really think about it because, like you said, there's healthier foods, like let's say an acai bowl, for example, could be, they say marketed as super healthy, but there's nuts, there's seeds, there's some stuff that by themselves you would classify as healthier foods, a lot of them, right?
Yes.
And then they drizzle chocolate sauce on. But if you just went the egg and bacon sandwich instead of the 1,200 calorie acai bowl, you'd probably have half the calories. So not saying that's better in terms of health, even though I probably would compare it, but it's one thing that it's marketed as healthy. And a lot of the time it is just super, super high in calories and a reason why people might not be losing weight, especially when they go and think it's a healthier option on the weekend.
Well, the choices really matter in what you get. Like even what you mentioned there with the egg and bacon sandwich, they can still be high in calories, like very high in fat still. And people don't realize bacon is not a high protein source. It's higher fat content than protein. So you got to be careful with that stuff.
Yeah, peanut butter the same.
Peanut butter's probably worse.
Oh, it's shocking. I love peanut butter, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's one of those things where people go, peanut butter is good. If you can look at, the total, I guess, protein per 100 gram serve, if there's more fat or more carbs in there, it's not really a high protein food. It's a high fat or high carb food. And there's going to be foods that have, like you take salmon, for example, probably highest in protein, but also going to be pretty high in fat on the side. So there are higher protein options that also come with a lot of fat. So it's just something to mention and to, like you talk about leaner cuts of meat when you're going out. It's like, okay, you're probably going to try and avoid the ribeye steak because there's probably going to be, 50 grams of fat, 900 calories. Well, if you can afford it. But, just by going with maybe like a sirloin steak, a lot less fat on it, a lot more trimmed up, and you're probably going to get away with, 300 or 400 calories per serve. So like, that's a massive difference just by having potentially the same amount of steak on a plate and just making that selection from the menu.
But what if one of them was grain-fed and what if one of them was grass-fed?
Yeah, well, when we talk about just calories, different story, but when we talk grain and grass-fed, again, more nutrients in the grass-fed stuff like a lot of people probably know now as well. So obviously we like to gravitate you towards those sort of better nutrients, but sometimes they will also come with a lot more calories. So it's about finding that balance depending on what you're trying to do with your body at the end of the day, I think.
Yeah, true.
So I think moving on, we'll want to talk more, I guess, talk about increasing movement as well. I think that's one thing that a lot of people, especially when eating out, it's like you can almost probably create a little bit more of a buffer if you're just more active on a weekend. Yeah. And I find a lot of people, they'll, hit their step targets on a weekday and the weekend they just become a couch potato. They hit 1,000, steps both days and do nothing. I know we're the opposite, but a lot of clients, a lot of people I know, like their steps will plummet on the weekend. Some will increase, of course, when they go out and do things. But a lot of others will plummet because they're just bedridden and want to, relax after a big week, for example.
I've got the opposite. I've got clients that, they're very high demanding job, but it's like an office job or it's a truck driving job or it's just something where you're sedentary. So they really struggle to get those steps in. Yeah. And then when the weekend they've actually got time to like be with the family or walk the dog, walk the kids, they actually end up getting more steps. Yeah. I think, like I said, it goes both ways. It goes either way. But I think in terms of what we're trying to talk about here, you've just got to think, okay, can I, is there something else I can do today? Can I get an extra walk in? Can I be more active with the kids? Can I do something that, especially when you're going to go out, if you're probably not going to maintain your deficit from this meal or this day, can I just burn a few extra calories, even though that's, normally not the aim of activity? Can I just burn that little bit extra just to sort of, at least put you back even maybe on maintenance for the day if you do end up blowing out and having the extra dessert or whatever that may be. So you can probably still continue, to get results if you're in a deficit, 6 out of 7 days of the week as opposed to blowing it all out with, with 1 or 2 meals throughout the weekend. Yeah, I mean, house chores are the best one that people don't think about. Like, you do a vacuum of the whole house, you hang up your laundry, mow the lawns, or whatever it may be. You can rack up 4,000 to 5,000 steps just from housework, and you don't even realize it. You think you're just doing your weekly errands. Yeah, I think it's just standing more than sitting as well. Like anything you can do that just encourages you to stand up, move. It's just movement. If you can incorporate more movement throughout the day, especially on your weekends, it's just going to help you create a nice little buffer, so you can feel a little bit less guilty about eating out. Of course, we don't want you to get to the point of like, oh, I've run 10K, so I deserve a cheesecake and a pizza. But it is getting to the point of again, it goes back to how many calories you're consuming, how active you are throughout the day. And like I said, you guys will be able to work that out. But of course, if you're not sure, feel free to message one of us and we'll be able to help you out, finding your deficit or what you can do to optimize your body composition there without putting yourself in a bit of a deeper hole. I think drinking, obviously we've talked about alcohol in one of the previous podcasts. So if you haven't had a look at that, please go back and watch that. But we know, like I said, just quickly, alcohol contains 7 calories per gram. We know if we're going to be out eating, the chances of us being out drinking is going to be probably high as well. A lot of people have a drink with their weekend dinner. I would say try and avoid that until at least after you've had your food, just from a digestion standpoint. Like we know, we've talked about in the last podcast, alcohol is one of those things where the liver will process that first. So if you have a meal and a drink of alcohol at the same time, the body won't start processing what you've eaten until that's that standard drink has been evaporated from the body, digested from the body. So it's something to worry about because otherwise the more chance it's probably going to get stored as body fat, even though you might still be in deficit. Yeah, very true. Yeah. So I think then there's also the cascade risk of all the other things like cravings and hormones and, after one, is it ever just one? Yeah. How many times have you said, all right, we'll get one beer?
Yeah. Leads
And
to-
then you know, the chemicals kick in, the dopamine, the brain chemicals, everything, neurotransmitters, and then it's just like, all right, then you feed 50 into the pokies, then you get another one.
Yeah.
It just, and then, you know, 3 a.m. you want a kebab.
Yeah, bad choices.
Much better choices.
And then the next morning, it's the same thing. You know, you move less, you crave shit food again.
Well, that's really the alcohol impact from sleep, I reckon. Because then
As
there's
well.
the willpower that just completely depletes, and the cravings, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like I said. Go back to the last podcast. We talked a massive deal about alcohol, all the effects, and how you can sort of suit it whilst you try and improve your body composition there. But sort of back on topic here with eating out, I think consistency is one thing that a lot of people, you know, they don't look back over a couple of months. Like if you can look back and say, hey, you know, I went out for dinner 3 times over the past 12 weeks, you know, if you were consistent for that whole 12 weeks apart from those 3 meals, you look like a different person, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're going out for 2, 3, 4, 5 meals every single week, the chances of then you know, just bumping those calories up, potentially not being in that deficit anymore are going to be higher.
Yeah.
So we're never going to try and tell you guys not to eat out, not to eat out with your family. But it's just something where you go, okay, once or twice a week, I'd probably recommend doing it, looking at the menu, finding a good option, and finding something that fits within your calories and lifestyle.
And also, you need to also want to make the change as well. I just hammer this home because I had this one client 3 or 4 years ago, back in 2021, 4 years ago, and he just was refusing to change his lifestyle. He was business dude, wanted to take his wife out multiple times a week, Italian, so they wanted to drink their wine and all this stuff. And he's like, I don't get this meal plan. Like, what if I want to go out with my wife and stuff? And I had to be like, you don't for a short period of time. You're trying to make a change. What you want and what your lifestyle previously was and what you signed up with me for to change, you're going to have to make changes. And, you know, he spat the dummy and ended up quitting. But turns out he didn't really want to change.
I think that's it. Yeah, it's a big thing. That's
Like
you know,
learning to say no.
learning. But again, that's, you know, people want their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
They want both things. It's like, oh, I want to be able to eat out every night. I want to be able to drink a beer every night. I want to be
doesn't
able to do
work that
this,
way.
you know, get away with not going to the gym. And then I want to change my lifestyle and look like the Hulk. And yeah, these things don't happen without some sort of sacrifice. And I'm sure probably everyone who watches this podcast has had a point, you know, like almost like a trigger moment, a point where they go, you know what, like I really do need to actually change something. And then they have probably had a dramatic shift. And again, it doesn't mean you go from, you know, sitting on the couch doing nothing to being a gym junkie 6 days a week and only eating clean food. But there will be a significant shift to be like, okay, my lifestyle is now, instead of being the person that does this, I'm the person that does that. You know, whether that be from the couch to I'm walking 10K steps a day, or, you know, as I said, I'm eating less out, or all those things, I'm meal prepping, etc.
And look, we know the person we want to become. We know, we visualize, we understand the things we have to do to get there. It's just actually doing them.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's like we know if we're eating too much food or if we're not tracking our calories or if we're eating out too much. We deep down know.
Yeah.
And it's not even deep down. We just actually know. We just refuse to acknowledge it because we need to change. We know that. But some people like to sit in that comfort.
Yeah. Well, how many times have, like, probably me and you as well as clients and everyone else in the world have, like, self-sabotaged and been like, you know, deep down that, like, you've had too many calories this week, right?
Oh, yeah.
But you almost convince yourself in your head, like, oh, no, it wasn't that bad. And then you're oh, no, you know, it's my coach's fault. Or like, you know, this thing's not working, you know. But we do it as coaches as well. So we understand that it's like, that happens.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we just cut the bullshit and realize, like, hey, it's on us. I had too much, regardless of how that happened or who pushed you to eat this or what happened. It's still your own choice at the end of the day. And as soon as you take that full accountability, I think that's, you know, that's where obviously the most growth happens. And that's when you're going to finally really start seeing changes, you know, months on months on months.
Yeah. But also data as well, because the more you deviate off plan in something that we can't track, like no matter what restaurant like has the macros or whatever listed, it's like, it's still not accurate. You still don't know. There's an element of guessing.
Yeah.
Unless you know every single thing you cooked and what ingredients and everything, and you tracked it all individually, then you know, then you have the data. If you don't have the data, then we're just second guessing. And then also if, say for example, as you mentioned, it's the coach's fault, which, you know, you and I have probably both received, and then, you know, we dig a little bit deeper and turns out, okay, there was actually something that happened Thursday night that shouldn't have happened. There was a bit of stress eating going on. And this is the thing, like we have these habits like stress eating or anything like that, and they just don't compute with our brain. You order a meal out and you're like, oh, I ordered the healthy option. So why am I still gaining weight? Like, we make these things to justify ourselves.
I think it's funny, isn't it? It's like that justification in your head of like, you know, like I said, I'm healthy. I'm trying to be healthy, and you are making better choices, which is an awesome start. But it does then come to calories in education, and you know, there's no point in putting in all this hard work. Like I see so many people who do it. Like I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that, and they're so on their nutrition and on this and on that, but they're not in a deficit. At the end of the day, which is
they're not changing.
It's crazy. Yeah, their body's not changing, even though like, they might be feeling a bit better and this and that, but their main goal is to get this fat off, and this fat isn't moving because no matter how good they think they're eating, they're still consuming too many calories or not moving enough, or a combination of the two.
Well, it's like when people go out and they'll be like, I ordered the salad. And it's like, yeah, there was a shit ton of olive oil, dressing,
Caesar
feta
salad.
cheese. Yeah, there was all this
Croutons.
stuff. Yeah, you ordered the chicken salad, but there was still probably 700 calories in that thing.
Yeah. And it's just like I said, going back to being aware. And I think one final thing I'll say is that, like, obviously we've been talking about this, but if you go out, you have a meal, there's going to be some times where you go, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to have this meal. I'm going to enjoy it. You know, it's a good occasion, whatever it is. And I'm just going to get back on track.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people go downhill, is they'll have that one meal on Saturday night or, you know, Sunday afternoon or whatever. And then it's like, it begins. My diet's ruined. I've had one donut, I may as well have 4. I've had one pasta, I may as well have the dessert. I may as well then go raid the chocolate cupboard. And it's just about stopping yourself, being content, being happy with what you've eaten. No, I've gone over my calories. Oh, well, back on the meal. I won't even notice it in a day.
Yeah.
And I think that's the final message that I want to leave for people, is that you can still get results doing that, provided you're not doing that, you know, 3 times a week.
Yeah. Well, I'll give 2 final messages. The first one is, like, the longer you abstain from something, the better it's going to be. So the longer you abstain from eating out, the first time you eat out, it's going to taste so much better because it's something off meal plan and it's just something different. It's the same as like someone who's an alcoholic and goes sober, but then he has that risk of having that one sip, or that one person has that one cigarette when they quit smoking. It's like, it's just a little bit of a risk. Food's probably less addictive, but it still can be a big dopamine addiction for a lot of people. Lastly, I would add in some certain supplements that you can take with you can just really help aid going off plan. So I'll give you 3. One is Tudka, which will just help actually aid bile flow. So and also the liver as well. So the gallbladder and the liver have a synergistic relationship. When you're about to eat a meal that's off plan, it could be really high in fats and carbohydrates. That's a nightmare for your liver to just digest all in one, especially if you haven't eaten a large amount of calories before in one sitting. Let's say you've been dieting for 8 weeks and then you just have this cheeseburger and fries. It's like, okay, it's very stressful on the body. The Tudka can really help aid digest that through. Secondly, I will say, if you're going to have something very carb heavy and you know, you have that risk of a blood sugar spike and high heart rate and all that stuff that will affect your sleep, if you pop 500 milligrams of berberine beforehand, it'll help just steady all those levels. And lastly, I'll give you digestive enzymes. It's just something you can just quickly take after the meal. You can have a little small supplement canister in your car. Just pop out to your car if you want and just quickly pop 2 enzymes or bring them in with you, and it'll just help.
Yeah, I find the digestive enzymes, like for me, when I was trying to bulk up lately, starting to get a bit of digestive stress and things like that, because you're shoving in calories. So I find that digestive enzymes for me was a game changer when I started using them, especially in those like high volume, high fiber meals as well. And especially when I was starting to just, get to the point of, adding some snakes and adding some other, sugars and things just to get, the calories in. But I think, that's a great place to leave it, guys. If you've enjoyed the episode, make sure you give us a rating. Again, if you ever want to talk to myself or Liam, all the links for our socials are in the description below. But until next time, guys, we'll see you in the next podcast.
See you guys.